Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Now in Massachusetts, you can get your standard driver's license regardless of immigration status. Gather all required documents: proof of identity and date of birth, proof of Massachusetts residency, and proof of Social Security status. Next, register at mass.gov/myrmv for your learner's permit. When you pass, schedule your road test at mass.gov/myrmv and prepare at mass.gov/road test. Register today.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. And I'm saying that with pride because over the last week or so, I forgot the month. I've messed up on the day. I think a couple of weeks ago, I put like June 2098, 2023. So I'm proud of myself this morning. That's my testimony. It is Testimony Tuesdays this morning, and we're taking a different perspective to testimony. We're going to hear from a photographer, a world-renowned Pulitzer Prize winning photographer who is going to share about a project that they're working on called The Faces of Pain. We're going to hear about how she landed in a space to capture humanity and the real human side. And it's interesting that you have to say this, the real human side of human issues, not just the politics, not just, of course, the impact is captured, but the human impact of human issues. And so we're going to talk, and I believe in saying folks' names correctly. And so I have her first name for sure, but I'm going to allow her to say her last name because I forgot it that quick. But we know how important it is in stating our names correctly. And so I'm getting ready to bring Leonie into the Java Cafe. I ask that all of you welcome her, listen in about the project, about her work her and her husband are doing. I want to give a shout out to Chip Goins, a very good friend. We do a lot over on Twitter, and I don't know if he can interact here on Facebook this morning. I have Twitter open up on my phone just for him in case he's on this morning. But without further ado, I would like to introduce to some and present to others Leonie, and say it just once for me, your last name, so it is said correctly going forward.
It's Marinovich.
Marinovich, I got it now. Leonie Marinovich, who is a photographer. And first of all, good morning to you. Thank you for coming to the Java Cafe. It's been a couple of weeks back and forth with emails trying to get this set up to share information about your project. But we definitely appreciate Chip making the connection. But say good morning to the folks and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So hi, Jimmy, and thanks for having me on the show. And good morning to everybody out there. So I just want to clarify, I'm not the Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. I'm the Pulitzer Prize winning photographer's wife.
Okay. Well, that's just as good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Greg.
So Greg is the one who put his life on the line a couple of times to uncover hard-hitting news events. I'm the one who works with him. We've been making documentaries together for the past 23 years. We're still married, despite working together. Though it can be a challenge at times, let me put it that way.
Okay.
And my focus tends to be predominantly on issues around public health or human rights.
Okay, and that is public health and human rights is definitely two pillars and subjects that we talk about often. The essence around this platform started in public health, and so definitely what you're working on resonates with me. How did you get into photography? How did you and if you're not the actual photographer, thank you for clarifying that, but
no I am.
You are okay. So, how did you get into photography? You can tell us maybe a little bit of how you met Greg. And it's funny to hear you say that after 23 years of working together, that you're still married. That's a testimony on Testimony Tuesday in itself. But how did you get in photography? Do you remember the first picture that you took?
I do, as a matter of fact. And I do want to stress that, I am a documentary photographer and filmmaker. I kind of happened to fall into it by accident. I was working in Switzerland in IT. If I might want to clarify that my accent is South African in case people are wondering.
Okay.
I left South Africa just after 94 when we had our first democratic elections. Ended up in IT like a lot of people did at the time when it was still an emerging industry. I met Greg at Easter and we got married at Christmas, and we had 2 dates. And at that point, I said to him, listen, either you marry me or I'll try and find a polite word, go somewhere else. And we ended up getting married. I moved back to South Africa and I looked at him taking pictures and I thought, my goodness, this looks like a nice way to earn a living.
Okay.
And so he introduced me to photography. My very first picture where I realized that photography could be more than just snapshots of family was on our honeymoon. We went to Eritrea to research war photographers' archives there. And that's when I realized that this is a really wonderful tool to gain access to people and their stories.
Mhm.
And that's when I made the career change. I was 28 or 29, so I've been doing this since then. And living in South Africa, obviously the predominant issue of our day was AIDS.
Yes.
Antiretroviral drugs came very late to South Africa, and people were dying. In 2000, when I started this, that it was a death sentence. And initially I was reluctant to cover this because it felt invasive. But then I realized this is such a big issue, you cannot avoid it. It would be remiss of me to delete that from our history. And from the outset, my role was basically to provide a tool for people to tell their own stories.
Yes.
To give them that space and acknowledgement. I am simply there with a camera and a recorder and providing that facility for you to tell your own story in the way you want it to be told.
And again, it's interesting how much of what you and Greg are doing resonates with this platform, because conversations and stories is another pillar and tenet, because the history that is captured, the story of the human experience in the time that you're taking the picture. There's a couple of photographers in here. I mentioned Thaddeus Miles to you, and he was one of the first people I thought of when I started looking through your portfolio, because this statement, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It just means, I think, so much more today here in America in a post George Floyd period. In that vein, you don't just capture within the United States. You both have captured the human experience across the world. Why is that so important in capturing that moment in time when traditional stories are told in a narrative or a video? What is the significance of that one shutter moment?
So a picture can't tell the full story, but it can serve as a connection for people to connect with. Often we connect with people through seeing them. And in portraiture especially, there's a connection formed through looking at people in the eye. And then if that's what it takes to draw you in to listen to the rest of the story, I'll take it. Oh. And video serves the same purpose, right? We want to connect with people on multiple levels, not just in a one-dimensional way, i.e. reading about their story. And so the thing about portraiture too is that it's a collaboration between the photographer and the subject. As the subject, you determine how you want to be seen by the bigger world. And so the pictures that I end up choosing often will be with the collaboration of the sitter. Are you happy with this picture? Is this how you see yourself? I see you in this way. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the picture that goes out there in the bigger world.
How often have you presented your perspective and the subject is like, oh my God, I never saw myself like that, or this is it? Like, how often have you had that reaction to where you've captured in a moment of time something that they may have not even realized, or that would be so that they knew could be so apparent about them just within a moment of time in a picture?
You know, so there's a couple of ways I can approach that. I have photographed in really difficult times. For instance, I have photographed at my own uncle's funeral. I've offered to photograph at close friends' funerals.
Yep.
Of their relatives, because when you're in that moment, you don't register, you don't have time to process what's going on. And it's painful. I mean, I can't look at the pictures of my uncle's funeral now. I might be ready for it later, but
Yep.
it gives me a chance to step back out of the emotion a little bit and either relive or reevaluate that person's last moments, his life, my connection to them. So I hope that with the portraits that I take, some of my portraits are, people don't see them again because it's not that kind of project. This project that I'm working on at the moment and projects I've done on AIDS projects, people collaborate with me, they get to see their pictures. I don't think I've ever asked them what they think of their image.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they happy with it in some way, so clearly I've done something right. I should sit down and have that conversation. For me, it's always, there's a goal. I need you to be happy with how I represent you. So let's choose a picture and let's get it out there. For me, it's really more about the relationships I form with people. And I'm, very proud of the fact that most of these difficult subjects I've covered, I have remained friends with most of the people I've met through this.
That says a lot. That says an absolute lot. Let's talk about, you mentioned a project that you're working on now. You and Greg are working on a project called The Faces of Pain. Tell us about that. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. Leona and I already have prepared to make sure that the text is large enough for you guys on the screen before you stop fussing at me that you can't see it. But tell us about this project here that you're working on now, The Faces of Pain.
So for me, it's always been really important to present the human face of issues, particularly around health, because so often we become a statistic. You'll hear 80% of people go on to blah, blah, blah. What does that 80% actually look like?
Yep.
And so this project, I embarked on it with Greg in January. So just to make it clear, the way Greg and I stay married is if one of us takes the lead in a project. And so I'm the lead on this project and he's the backup and support.
Okay.
Let that be a tip for anybody else who's trying to work together.
You got a few nuggets that have come up a drop this morning, how to stay married 23 years. So yes.
So this project started in January. And from the outset, I wanted to have a broad representation of something that is very subjective. One of the conclusions I've reached in spending hours with people who participated was that for one person, what would be extremely acute pain would be for another person just run of the mill.
Yep.
And there's no way to predict which it's going to be for whoever. Mm-hmm. And so I started in January. I made sure that we covered quite a broad spectrum of society, from fairly middle, higher, upper economic income groups to lower economic income groups, some racial representation. And it's been really marvelous. So when you go to the doctor, often they fixate on this whole pain scale. What, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain today?
Yep.
I mean, what does that even mean? And what does it look like to you and to me? I've given birth. Does that actually play a role in how I judge my pain scale?
Yep.
You might have been in a car accident. That might influence. You might have been, in the army or in the military in any way. All of these things start playing a role.
And there is some intentionality. Chip had mentioned when we conversed at an event that you are very intentional about in this project. When you talk about diversity and a wide spectrum of folks, you also want to ensure that there is a good portion captured of people of color, Black and brown people. And let's talk a little bit about that intentionality of that, because this is an authentic space, and I love and appreciate the fact that you want to capture the whole spectrum of the pain of the human experience. So let's talk a little bit. Is it that, and I'll be very, I'll just ask you an honest question. Is it that you haven't had that much of a response to folks to sign up for the project? I certainly know it's not because Black and brown folks have not experienced acute pain. And also, let me ask a little bit, when you talk about acute pain, are you just talking about more on the physical, or are you considering the behavioral health sort of perspective as well?
So, okay, there's a couple of things I'd like to address. When we first moved to America, I found that people don't often talk openly about race, and how race can shape your experience in every sphere. And I know that, especially the Black community has been stigmatized by this whole opioid crisis. Initially it was, if you're a Black person, it's an addiction problem. If you're a white person with opioid addiction, suddenly it becomes a middle class person, and now it becomes a health issue that we need to address. So we go from the criminalization of opioids to this health crisis. So as an outsider, I wanted to understand, what is it that drives this? So I know there's very disparate experiences of issues in America. In South Africa, we really talk about race openly, believe it or not, and I think that maybe is our saving grace. So to that effect, I also managed to track down Native Americans, who are always underrepresented in how stories are told. Either you have to tell your own story and hope for the best, and I don't know what led to this. I feel like some of the conversations that you as a community have had to deal with have been incredibly difficult, and maybe white people are trying to find how to support that or not. Frankly, that's not my domain. My domain is, I'm here to listen, and maybe the people immediately around you are so bored with listening to you talking about either your pain issues or whatever. I hope to provide an ear that you can unload a little bit, and then get on with the rest of your day. And so, I think I do have some representation in Black and colored folk in my project, but not enough. Okay. And I also suspect that this, people not signing up for this project has to do with historically how Black people have been treated in medical environments.
We talk about that often. So again, another point of resonating with you around this project, and I think why Chip thought it was important to bring attention to it. And so there are a lot of issues that come with the inequity, with some of the pain that Black and brown people experience. A lot of that is due to inequity, late diagnosis, not feeling entreated comfortably when they do decide to go into a medical environment, based on sometimes the hesitation of what you named of historical context of dealing with the medical society. And so I want to definitely applaud and thank you for your intentionality around that. Let's go into how folks can sign up, learn more about the project. I actually should have pinned it to the top. I'm going to do that in real time right now, but there is a link, you guys, in the live right now. I'm going to try to turn the phone down so you all don't hear the echo there. I did put the link, and of course it's okay. There it is. I did put the link in the comments, and because it was early on, it's not letting me show. So I'm just going to copy and paste and do it again. All right. How do I do that? So somewhere in the comments toward the top, there is a link for you to contact Leonie and Greg. And I just wanted to go a little bit more into the page here, so you guys can see some information about the project. They outline what is acute pain. Let me just try to get this. That's a little better here. And so there's information about the project. So let's go a little bit over of what's required. Leonie, what type of subjects are you looking for? You're definitely looking for Black and brown, maybe specifically Black, and that's fine. But what are the requirements if folks are interested in being captured and being able to tell their story?
Okay, so we're focusing on acute pain and acute physical pain.
Acute
Pain,
physical. Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
pain goes across the spectrum, and I'm happy to listen to it because it's part and parcel of living with pain.
Yep.
But acute pain, what we're looking for in this particular project is if you're 18 and older, if you've had a recent experience of acute pain that is generally the result of either an injury or surgery, and you can accurately recall what that felt like and how you dealt with it, that's what the conversation is about. Um, so it's quite interesting. It's not always that easy to distinguish between acute and chronic pain, but chronic pain kicks in a period of about 3 months. If you've had an injury and the pain hasn't left you by the end of 12 weeks, that is then considered chronic pain.
Okay.
So I want to get you in that acute pain phase where you still have fresh memory of a recent surgery or an injury.
And forgive the distraction for a quick moment, but now we have the link pinned to the top of the comments. And so if you are interested, the contact information is there. And so just for clarity's sake, it is physical acute pain that you can clearly in your story state and go back to why you're experiencing this acute pain. So presumably before that 12-week period, before it's considered chronic by the medical society. Okay. And you will be asked to sign a medical release agreement that specifies where and how your information can be used. Another piece here, and you named this early, where will my story appear? So let's just answer that for folks who are wondering, yeah, I'm interested, but am I going to pop up somewhere over in South Africa or somewhere else? Where will their stories appear?
Well, in short, everywhere, possibly.
Okay.
No, because the point of this is that I'm trying to get these personal experiences. The people who have chosen to share their stories with me are people who want to have these conversations with other people in a similar situation,
Okay.
or who want to maybe inspire or help or support somebody else who might be going through this. And it was the same in my work I did around HIV and AIDS. Not everybody's ready to get out there and publicly disclose that they're living with something.
Yep.
But if you're ready to talk about this in a public way and be part of some form of community, then I'd be happy to hear from you.
Okay. And so just to make it a blanket cover, consider that your story might be shared everywhere. And so if you have that in mind, that covers everywhere and everything. What is exactly involved? What exactly is involved, rather? So an interview can take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours in a sitting. And are you doing this virtually? Or are you focusing some time that you're going to be around the Boston area? What is ideal for you?
So I do it in person in a space that you feel comfortable with.
Okay. So you come to the folks.
Yeah, so I've done interviews on Revere Beach, for instance. I've done interviews in diners. So it doesn't have to be your home.
Okay.
It can be anywhere.
Okay. All right. And so the best thing for folks to do, and we're getting right to it now, I think I might have a story for you. What should I do? There is the contact form here, and you go in and you put in your name, your last name, your email address. Please contact me about the pain project. That's all already pre-populated for you. In here specifically, you want folks to give a little narrative about their story. Okay.
Just why do you think you're a suitable candidate? So, for instance, people I've interviewed for this project range from somebody who's recovering from hip surgery to someone who lost all their fingers in a work-related accident.
Okay.
So you can imagine the spectrum. Yeah, I've got somebody, a 20-year-old who's a hockey player, right through to somebody in their 80s. So I'd love to have a diverse group of people participate in this. So somebody we can all relate to.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of folks in the audience that will go watch after this that are definitely relatable and personable as well. And so we thought Thaddeus, so my photographer, uncle friend, that I was mentioning, he is in the room. And so I'm just going to bring this comment up real quick. And I love her work, Living with HIV. I did portraits at Noski's Haven in South Africa a few years back, which opened my eyes to that world. I look forward to seeing more from this current powerful project. Uncle Thaddeus, thank you for that. Again, I think we want to make sure that we reiterate that, one, you're moving in this space from a public health equity perspective to ensure that folks' stories around acute pain are told, because somewhere within telling that story, the inequity is going to be raised. And so the more we keep that out there across the world, but specifically here in America, that informs policy. Someone would hear the story, and the next time a legislator is in a session and remembers what they heard about people, I think we as a society need to do a little bit better at our appreciation for stories and the impact of stories that literally change society right in real time. I see you nodding. Go ahead and respond to that.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, these stories get heard by such a variety of people. And who knows, it might just hit that legislator who's going to decide whether we need to focus on treatment and whether we need to make it affordable for everybody, and it doesn't just stay in the realm of rich people who can pay for this exclusive treatment, whatever it is.
I think I'm going to need you to come back, because so a part of my brand is also this thing of Java After Dark. You know, this is Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. and it's the nice daytime talk show. You seem like you would fit in a real, very real conversation about, health equity. And not just, we're centered here in Boston in the United States, but maybe across the world. And so don't be surprised if I reach back out to you to be on one of those panels. We can have a little glass of wine and just have a real conversation, because I do believe that telling the stories, and what you said, one legislator seeing a photo that would pull them in, they look down at the narrative. If there's a QR code to the video, the next session they go into a story, a picture that you took of someone that may be watching now may influence policy. It's not that far-fetched. It is not that far-fetched.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, the hope is that this will get in front of legislators. It will get in public spaces that aren't normally penetrated by this type of storytelling. That's my goal. And I hope that people who want to get involved with this share that goal. It's really so rewarding to talk to people who've gone through these experiences and are willing to share it with me.
Yep.
And in fact, you're talking about the global impact. I started working on a project looking at people who've lived with HIV for 30 years plus. And it's been so remarkable how things correspond and differ from experiences globally.
Yeah.
The Boston experience. And I mean, the stuff that I see here is stuff that I see in South Africa or in the rest of Africa, which is, I mean, Boston and Massachusetts, it's so liberal and provides such good healthcare in general compared to other states in the US. But to still see some of that resonate with my experiences in South Africa is rather shocking, I have to say.
Okay. And these are the points that I think we can do a little deeper dive into in a Java After Dark, because we often, I think sometimes I'll speak for myself, at risk of being insulated just in what there's a privilege in being in Boston and being in Massachusetts and being in the United States when it comes to healthcare. Though let's name some questionable things are going on about women's rights to make decisions about their bodies. But generally speaking, we do have quite a privilege when it comes to healthcare. But at the same time, there is still huge inequity when it comes to Black and brown folks and women, the LGBTQ plus community, those that are dealing with disabilities in various forms. And so, Leonie, I really appreciate you. It is a different perspective to Testimony Tuesday, but we really heard your testimony about capturing the humanity, specifically in this case around health equity. And a lot of times you may find in these stories that folks are experiencing acute pain that possibly could have been avoided. Car accident is, one thing, but then what was the treatment after?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just wanted to, seeing that this is Testimony Tuesday and you gave me a little bit of a heads up around mental health.
Yes.
I mean, it is important so I find that talking about things really help with your mental health.
Yep.
And when you have somebody who's non-judgmental or uninvolved in your life, you're never going to see them again, possibly. I personally find that quite helpful, which is why I pay a therapist. But not all of us can pay a therapist. So
You tapped
There we
into.
go. Find somebody to talk to. Find somebody to share that load with you. And don't feel guilty for taking up that space.
Yeah, we're going to have you back. Shout out to Chip and George as well for making this connection. I really appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. I just want to again reiterate, and it is pinned in the comments at the top of the comments. If you are interested, if you have a thought and think you may be a good candidate, just fill out the form. Leonie will have a conversation with you and let you know. And I will also name, just through some correspondence, if it is favorable, there is some level of compensation for your time as well. And so it's not just you coming and telling the story. And that in itself is a demonstration of you guys' commitment, because a lot of times this isn't research, but other times when people's stories wanted to be captured, they don't consider people's gas and time and maybe food and whatnot. And so even something like that definitely speaks to you all's intentionality. And so I definitely appreciate that. Did we miss anything? We shared the contact for the web to get in touch with you. We shared the link a couple of times in the comments, and I think we got everything.
I think so. I'll
You
just
think
give
so?
you my email. I'll just give
Okay.
you my email address. Sorry, and then people can
There it is
also
right
reach out.
there. Yep, I got that. I'll put that in the comments as well. I'm so glad we can do some of this stuff in real time. So
And
for
I'd
those,
love,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm used to interrupting. I'm, a lecturer, so I'm always like jumping in when I shouldn't. So no, I'd love to continue this conversation at some point. And I really thank you for the time and this platform. And I hope that we get people who are interested in sharing their stories with me.
There's another project I'm working on that involves the NIH. And so don't be surprised that we because there could be a component that needs to be captured specifically with it's around long COVID. And we have not seen the full impact of that. And so we're gonna stay in contact. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Leonie, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting Greg one day. And you guys are based here in the general Boston area. Okay.
Yes, we are.
Right.
And Greg is even less diplomatic than I am. So the nighttime chat with a glass of wine will probably turn out a little bit more free flowing than you anticipated.
I love the way that you frame that. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. Please keep me abreast of things that you're doing. If there's an exhibit or anything, once this is final or whatever, please keep us abreast. But I'll be in touch with you anyway, because we're there's the whole health equity compact movement that's going on here in Massachusetts. And so Thaddeus had one more comment before we go. Real talk about her images, stories, and narratives was great. To start off our morning. And so your testimony inspired some folks this morning. So I definitely appreciate you for spending the time with us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Jimmy.
Folks, different perspective for Testimony Tuesday, but definitely heard a lot of things that we talk about on this platform often about health equity, mental health, telling stories. And y'all know I don't take the pictures, but I'm into photography. I like to be captured. So definitely, if you are interested in this, the link is at the top. Go and check that out. And also her email address is here. Take a screenshot. No, sir. Take a screenshot of this real quick of her email address, but it is also in the comments right there as well. You can cut and paste it, email Leonie as well. Thank you all for being here with us this morning for Testimony Tuesday. Listen, let me put this out there and get it up on the screen so folks can see it. Tomorrow morning, I know that I am aware that folks would really like to get more information about the upcoming NAACP convention. And so guess what? Hold on. Let me get the image there. I'm getting ready to sit up here and try to talk trash a little bit. And I got to get the image queued up. Craps, here we go. Nope, not that one. This one. All right, I got it, y'all. I got it. Here we go. Y'all know I do stuff in real time, but I got it right. Tomorrow morning, let me get back to you guys. This screen here. All right. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., folks, please listen. We will not be here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Somebody type 10 a.m. I was going to say. Somebody type 10 a.m. I know a lot of folks have been asking questions and would like to know a lot of the details and everything that is going on with this week's upcoming NAACP convention that is coming to Boston. In one of her very last interviews before the convention starts, the local president, attorney Tanisha M. Sullivan, is coming into the Java Cafe to tell us all things about the convention. There's a whole hub that even if you're not registered and not a delegate, that you can go to the convention center and hang out. We will be going live from there. Shout out to the Davis system because they let me know yesterday that they reached out to the team, and Java with Jimmy got press credentials. And so we'll be there talking to folks. But tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., come into the Java Cafe to hear directly from our local president. We were and still kind of working on trying to get the national president to speak with us as well. That might not take place until we get to the convention center. But shout out to the team. I want to shout out a wonderful sister that is in the room. You're going to see her name. Some of you are interacting with her. Anissa Benjamin has been the person that's been killing our social media and getting me in line. She's part of the Davis system and has her own marketing and branding component herself. And so honored to see you in the room this morning, sis. That is it for us this morning. I have to get over to Mass Bios. They're having some event today. I got to get over there by 10:30. But make sure you plan to come into the room tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with our local president, Tanisha M. Sullivan. I'm looking so forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Somebody say 10 a.m. Last thing, choir rehearsal is tonight at Bethel Tabernacle Pentecostal, which is at 12 Bicknell Street. I'm sending out an email to those that have registered, to those that are part of Voices of Embrace, to those that were part of the Mayor's Gospel Fest Community Choir last year. Rehearsal is tonight at 6:30 p.m. at Bethel Tabernacle Church over at 12 Bicknell Street in Dorchester. On Thursday, we are going back to 12th Baptist at 6:30 p.m. We're out. We're choir in the wilderness, traveling, trying to find a home. No, I'm messing. See you guys tonight at 6:30 p.m. Leslie, see you there. Sharon Cornelia, see you there. Thank all of you who checked in and typed 10 a.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. with Tanisha Sullivan. That's the theme as we go out today. Thank you all so much for tuning in today, and we will see you tomorrow morning at what time? 10 a.m. Have a great day, everybody. I think I am all set here. All right. We'll see you tomorrow morning.